I am Vinnie Tortorich. Folks, your good intentions have been stolen, but don't worry. I'm here to help you get them back. You may be soft and succulent at the beginning of this process, but hang in there. Before long, you will be lean and mean, guaranteed. Yeah, Blondie, call me. Folks, this is the Wednesday show. You know what that means. We bring in someone to help me out here. Today, it's Chris Shaffer. Yeah. Chris, do you know the significance of that song with me?
Of Blondie? No.
No.
Although I guess I'm wearing the right shirt for that. I'm wearing like a blonde sweatshirt.
Is that what you would call that? I would call that eggshell.
Yeah, it's a little more yellow, I think, than it looks in the camera.
We're going to call it eggshell. No, Blondie, back in New Orleans when I had my radio show Talking Fitness, that was my music at the top of the show. And I'm not kidding. You know, I was training a gazillion people. I was working at Newman School. I also had McGlinchey Law Firm as a client, you know, where I built a whole gym and a law firm and on and on and on, right? So I was a busy boy. And I was doing this radio show, and I would just go from my last client, and I would be driving like a madman to get over to the station, which if you live in New Orleans, it was right off of Poydras, right on the, as they would call it there, the lakeside of the I-10. I'm talking New Orleans talk, the I-10, the lakeside of the I-10. So away from the Superdome, going away from the Superdome. And that's where it was. And I would just wheel in there on two wheels. And I would be listening to that radio station, and they would be playing my lead-in music. I wasn't in the building yet.
Sounds about right.
Like half the time. It was like something you would see in a movie. I would run in, throw the cans on, the music would, you know, pod down, and I would be huffing and puffing. And the audience thought that that was part of the gig.
Right. Vinnie was doing cardio before the show.
Yeah, Vinnie was, yeah. And I was like, I'm Vinnie Tortorich. Okay. All right, hang on. And, you know, and I would try to throw something to my producer who was in the booth really fast to get him talking so I can put my mic on sneeze. Do people know what that means? There's a button we have. It's called the sneeze button.
The cough or sneeze button. Yeah.
Yeah. I would hit the sneeze button and try to compose myself after I would ask, you know, my guy in the booth a question and then come back. And I wish I could say that happened once or twice, but that was commonplace. And every time it was like, I would tell my client, I gotta go. Yes, I would love to work with your kid next week on, yeah, I get it. He's going to be in. Yeah. I gotta, you know, nobody would ever let me go with the, I gotta go. Right. To the point where my radio show that started at 3 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon.
Coming into a radio show like that, I think is okay. Have you and I ever talked about the day I had my gallbladder taken out? I know we've talked about the surgery and the fact that I don't have one, but I scheduled my surgery first thing in the morning, right? So it's like 5:30 or whatever. They asked me to be at the hospital.
Yeah.
I show up. They sit you down to do the pre-anesthesia IV, and the nurse came in huffing and puffing. And I went.
And then all of a sudden, Chris heard this. Go on, Chris. Keep talking. What happened next?
She has the needle and she's been running. And so, you know, she's got that adrenaline going and she's about to stick me with the needle. And over the hospital PA, I hear there's a black Jetta rolling through the parking lot. And she goes, oh, shit. And runs. I'm like, wait, she didn't even put her car in park before she came in to try to jab me with a needle. Right.
Wow.
Blondie is fine. And coming into your radio station job, running like that, probably okay.
Yeah, but a nurse is going to jack you up.
Through the parking lot.
Her Jetta was rolling. That lets you know how long ago it was. Yeah. All right. So, Chris, we can sit here and talk about this crap all day long, but we got important things to talk about. As you know, I'm in a relationship. Been in a relationship for almost 18 years. Now, in a relationship, if you would have to guess, what's the number one thing you think couples fight about?
Money, food, healthcare, as I've learned this week. That's a story for a different day, but bigger life things typically.
I think money is number one. Guess what we've never had a fight about?
Money.
Money. As a matter of fact, we have very few fights. She tells me I'm wrong about everything. I say, okay, even though I know I'm right. And we just move on. Right? We don't have much to fight about. But there's been a bone of contention since we've moved here. Okay? And I thought that this would be a great discussion for today because it's one of those things where there's no cut and dry answer. And I think a lot of people are plagued with this problem. I called you and gave you little heads up and told you if you could find anything on the subject, please do. Now, when we lived in California, I don't care if you're on the right or the left or whatever, I think everyone can agree is the douchebag capital of the world. Not the nation, the world. Anything douchey, that starts. Now, when I was a kid, if it happened in California first, that's what we were doing, right? No matter what they were doing to cars in California, that made it around the country. You had to be California cool. Wearing faded Levi's started in California with the hippies, so on and so forth. And you could go on down the line. California has made the rules on hip. So when California decided that they were going to start doing things like saving the planet, the country followed suit. Now, please I want to be very clear about what I'm saying here, Chris. I believe that we should do everything to save the planet, everything we can. I'm a guy that my whole life, light switches. Now, when I was younger, it was my parents. Turn lights, turn lights, turn lights. Just constantly turn the lights off all the time, right? So I got in this habit of no matter what, if I'm going right out of the room, coming back, the light goes off, comes back on. It doesn't, it's not like a car engine where it goes, well, every time you kill it and start it, you're burning an extra. No, light is instant. You turn it on, you turn it off, and so on and so forth. Right. So I believe in saving energy. Energy, we have to do what we can. Right. And then all of a sudden, they told us we were killing the world. Somehow we're killing the world with our actions. And again, I believe it. I do believe it. Right. And the biggest problem we have is all of the plastics and all of the natural stuff that will never go away. So once we make it, it's kind of like styrofoam. Once we make it, it's there forever, right? We bring these chemicals together. Petroleums, we bring them together. We have styrofoam. Okay. We have plastics. Fine. So then California decided we needed to start recycling. And of course, my science brain goes to work way back in the day, and I go, okay, how's this going to work? What are we going to recycling? Are we going to spend more CO2 carbons? Well, there's people smarter than me. So they're saying that we can do this without spending a lot of CO2 carbons. So I'm going to buy into it. I'm going to do everything they want me to do. I'm going to recycle. And I recycle to the best of my ability. And sometimes I would do things based on what the authorities were talking about, even though, I always say question authority. On this, I was kind of lazy because at one time I was always getting paper bags. When I go to the grocery store, get the paper bag, even though the plastic bags were available. And then I noticed a hippie chick with patchouli oil over at Whole Foods in California would look at me funny because I was now using a paper bag. And of course, she was one step better than me. She brought her bags. But I was wondering why I was being looked at funny with the paper bags, even by the cashiers and everyone else. Well, I was getting a hairy eyeball. So I went and asked one of my hippy dippy friends, hey, listen, I keep getting these paper bags and I think I'm doing the right thing, and I'm getting a hairy eyeball. And my hippie friend went, "Oh, Vinnie, oh, young Vinnie, you have so much to learn. You're killing trees. Then you can't do that. You can't kill trees." It's like, well, wait a minute. So am I supposed to use the plastic because I was told that the plastic is killing baby harp seals? Now, what are we saving today? Trees or baby harp seals? Which way are we heading? Oh, Vin, use the plastic is much better for the planet. So I start using the plastic bags again because I want to be a do-gooder. I don't want to get the hairy eyeball over in Calabasas, California from some fucking hipster, right? Of course, Calabasas is the place where you would smell marijuana everywhere because it was legal, but my buddy had the cops called on him because he was smoking cigars in his backyard at a barbecue, and the neighbors called the cops because he was smoking. He had the audacity to smoke something that was legal in his backyard. Cops showed up. Can you believe cops would roll in something like that, Chris?
Did you and I talk about the story the other week about the mom that got arrested for letting her kid walk home from school?
No, but we will.
So yes, I can believe that because apparently anything you do is now the province of the local police department. Yeah,
it's crazy, right? So, but I don't want to get off on marijuana versus tobacco. They're both bad. Okay, my opinion. And don't write to me and go, "Hey, marijuana saved my life." I don't give a fuck. If it did, knock yourself out. Keep blazing or toking or baking or whatever the fuck you want to call it this week. And when 420 hits tomorrow, go do it again. I'm fine. But please leave my buddy alone so he can smoke a cigar while he's cooking a piece of meat in his backyard in Calabasas, California. Please. Please. Okay. Now, we move here. And in Calabasas, we had 3 garbage cans, Chris. We had one for garbage, one for the plastics and such, the stuff that could be refurbished. And we had the one for lawn clippings. You had to have 3: green, blue, and black. Black was for garbage, blue was to keep the planet clean, and green was for your yard clippings. Okay. We move here. They don't care much about yard clippings here. They care more about the green and the blue. I mean, the black and the blue. So we have the garbage cans for the garbage, and we have the stuff for the recyclables. Well, at some point, Serena says to me, she goes, "Honey," because in our kitchen, you pull the thing out. We have 2 things, right? We have a very modern kitchen. You could put the garbage in one. You could put the plastic in the other. Very, very
makes
convenient.
it easy.
Yeah. So the first day I put the plastic bag, the liner bag, in the one that's going to be for the recyclables. And Serena comes to me and she goes, "Honey, listen, you can't put that plastic bag in there. You can't put that in recycle." I said, "Well, it's plastic, honey." She goes, "Yeah, but they don't want that. They don't want the plastic bag." I said, "But it's a recyclable." She goes, "They don't want it." I said, "Well, what are we going to put in there?" She goes, "A paper bag." Now I'm completely fucking confused because the Chuli girl over in Calabasas gave me a hairy eyeball. It's like, wait a minute. So now paper's we're back on paper? Yeah, when you go to the grocery store, tell them you want paper because we need to put the paper to collect the stuff to go to. So paper goes into the reusable. So we're okay on trees now? We're back on hugging trees? Okay. Just wanted to make sure because, you see, I'm not trying to be an asshole. I'm just trying to understand. I'm trying to be a team player. I want to see this world go on for future generations. Okay. Well, a couple of weeks pass and Serena comes to me again. "Honey, I need to talk to you about the trash situation." I was like, "Listen, I'm putting the paper bags in there. We're good, right?" And she's like, "Oh, you're fat. You're doing great with that." Right? She's patting me on the head like I'm a good puppy. "You're doing good."
There's a big hairy butt coming.
Oh, yeah. She goes, "You're leaving the caps on the, like I buy kefir. You know, you got the cap. I'll buy yogurt. These are my two products, kefir and yogurt. And after you open it, there's a plastic thing you put back on so you can save the rest for later, right? And I also do cottage cheese, high-fat cottage cheese. She goes, you got to take the tops off of those and put those in the trash with the garbage and put the other in the reusables. What are you talking about? She goes, they don't want the tops. So I pulled out the yogurt container. I said, honey, this is made out of the same stuff as the top. They're both the same plastic. I don't understand why they don't want the plastic bag. Now I'm even further confused as to why they don't want the plastic. She goes in. It's Charlottesville. They don't want the plastic top. But it's plastic. It's about 1/3 of the carton.
In the case of yogurt, it's about half. Yeah.
Not half. I'm gonna give it 1/3. Let's be honest.
Now, Vin, so for your kefir or kefir, I know we're gonna get all kinds of emails about that too.
Yeah.
Is that top? Is that the size of like a milk jug top, or is it more like the the orange juice ones?
No, it's kind of wide because kefir comes out ka-clump.
Yeah.
So it's nice size, but hang on. And no matter what, because I work from science. Serena works from feelings, right? She drives a Subaru, right? Because she likes puppies. Okay. Subaru.
How are those two related?
Have you, dude? I went to the car show in LA one time and I went by the Subaru booth because Serena's last Subaru was getting really old. I said, oh, let me see what's coming up for Subaru. They had a puppy kissing station.
I mean, that's just good marketing.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. I probably hung out a little longer at Subaru, but there were hot chicks handing you puppies. I probably stayed there longer than I stayed at the Lamborghini exhibition.
They didn't have puppies.
Puppies licking me. Come on. All Lamborghini had was the hot chick. She didn't have a puppy. Right? So Serena works, she's more feelings based and I'm more scientific based. So my science brain keeps making me drop the whole thing into the recyclable.
Right.
And every now and again, she'll see it, she'll fish it out, and that's where the fight begins. Now you're disrespecting me. Honey, I'm not disrespecting you. I think it's a stupid rule. And my brain can't get around stupid. See, my brain stays irrational. Therefore, I'm not disrespecting you. I just can't remember stupidity. It just falls out of my brain. Right?
If there, yeah, that does not sound logical by any stretch of the imagination. So here's a question, and it's mildly related, Vinny. It sounds like you are not necessarily a rule follower. I had this conversation with my mom the other day. She will follow any rule that is given to her because there must be a reason for it. I will follow a rule if it makes sense to me. If it does not make sense, then I have to question the rule. And it sounds like you fall more in that camp, right? You go, look, I will do it, but you have to explain to me why that makes sense and let me wrap my head around it.
I'm not a scofflaw. I think we know that I'm not narcissistic whatsoever. I've taken that test. There's no narcissism where I'm involved.
Isn't that what a narcissist would say?
Pretty much. I'm just telling you.
I scored 100% on that. Oh.
The test showed that I'm not, right? Because I don't think the rules don't apply to me. I'm a rule follower to a degree. Now, when the rules don't make sense, I start questioning, like what happens with health and fitness. That's why I'm in the position I'm in, because I'm always asking when it doesn't make sense, I'm always asking the question, why? And this leads me to a bunch of whys. Why aren't we putting the top? And then I forget and I drop it in there because it seems logical. Just like, and I know this is touching the third rail during the pandemic. You know, I was like, I don't buy the fact that a mask is stopping anything unless it's an actual N95 mask fitted properly by someone who knows how to fit it onto your face. Any kind of gap whatsoever, you might as well not have anything on. And that's been proven to be true, right? I wasn't against the mask. You want to wear it, knock yourself out. I wasn't wasting my time trying to sniff my own breath all day because that's about the only thing the mask was doing, right? So I don't want to get into the whole mask discussion because that could be a 3-hour podcast in and of itself. Today, or last night, I was watching Monday Night Football. Someone was kind enough to send me or give me a thing of nuts that I've been eating over the past couple of weeks. It was a thing of almonds, and they were raw, and they were plump, and they were delicious. They were so plump and delicious, they were almost sweet. So I took my time eating these almonds. Now, these almonds came in one of these cans. Now, the can is made of cardboard. You know, they have like a how can I say this? Like a 10 ring around the bottom.
Yeah.
And like a 10 ring around the top, but it's made of cardboard and they put like a Mylar finishing on the inside.
Yeah, it's kind of like a big fat tuna can.
Yeah, but it's not made of 10 all the way around. And once you open it, once you pop that kind of tuna top on top, the way you keep them fresh is they give you a little plastic thing that sucks onto that really well. And so watching football last night, I'm watching football and I have a little snack here. And I finished up those almonds. So the game was over at 11:30 or so on the East Coast. I get up, I go to the kitchen, I throw it away, and I head off to brush my teeth and go to bed. Well, I'm in here stretching this morning, and Serena comes down, and she is furious. She's furious. Why do you disrespect me? How many times? You know, and she's mad. Why don't you ever listen to anything I say? You know, women have to take it to that level. I'm not saying women. I'm talking about the woman you're married to or in a relationship with. All of a sudden, you do everything right until now you're the worst human being on the planet. And to be fair, I guess we do that to them too. It just doesn't feel that way coming from my side going towards her.
Right.
Right. And I'm like, what's going on? She holds up this can. And I was like, what's wrong with the can? And she goes, you left the top on. Now I'm really confused because I'm like, shit, does the Mylar and cardboard go into the garbage side? Because I know that's made of the same thing as a paper bag. Like, I'm confused. I'm really confused. And wait, there's a plastic top. Oh shit, I left that thing on. Right? I don't know what I've done. But boy, she is hot. She is hot. So I waited until she cooled off and I went upstairs and I pulled out a plastic trash bag. I pulled out the can and the top. I pulled out a paper bag. I pulled out a few other various things and I put them on the counter and I said, honey, you can see where my problem is because we're supposed to be saving trees, yet I'm supposed to use this paper bag for the reusables and then drop it in there and it's fine. They're okay with that. I'm supposed to put this here. I'm able to use plastic with the garbage, but I'm not able to use plastic with the plastic stuff. I'm able to do, and then on top of all of that, you're telling me I got to pull every fucking cap on because somehow miraculously caps that are made of the same plastic as everything else is now a problem? Vinny, I don't make the rules. I don't know who. I think they got someone who's high to make these rules. I said, Serena, they're literally fucking with us at this point. Do you understand? They are fucking with us. To tell you can't put the cap, the top, the this and that. I was fuming. I was pissed. And she understood my dilemma because I have all the stuff on the counter trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. Right?
Right.
And of course, then I came down here and I got on my spinner and I called you. Because we have to talk about business. So I can be on my spinner and talk about business. But that was on my mind. And when I told you about the cap, what did you do?
I was as confused as you are because it makes zero sense to me. And then I started doing a little bit of digging because there has...
I want you to hang on right there. Let's make this a cliffhanger.
So you called me, and Vinny, I had the same reaction that you did, which was, what? Right? Like, that makes no sense to me, unless somehow miraculously it's a different plastic. Because, you know, there's like 1s and 3s and 7s and 9s, and there's all kinds of different plastics. And some of them you can recycle, and some of them you can't. And some of them light on fire if you look at it sideways on a Thursday. And so I looked at Charlottesville, which, by the way, they have an app that they recommend for how to sort things into which bucket. But that's neither here nor there, right? That applies a lot of different places. The next question I had for you was, how many buckets do you have? Because some places there's like 5 or 6 different things you're supposed to sort out. You said, I have 2. I have a stuff that goes to the landfill bucket, and I have a stuff that theoretically gets recycled bucket. I said, okay. So we did a little bit of digging, and apparently if you're in a place that has a fancy recycle sorting machine, they do not want you to put caps in with the recycling, because if it's smaller than a quarter, it can jam the machine. But caps that are larger than that are okay. But if you read their rules, it basically just says no caps. So the cap from something like a milk jug would be about the size. That's about the size of a quarter, right?
Yeah, I think that's what they're talking about.
And so larger caps, like your Greek yogurt cap or something on like a tin of peanuts, right? That is okay to recycle because it's not small enough that it can get jammed in the machine.
Right.
Knowing that now, does that satisfy the logic side of your brain, at least in terms of the cap, no cap discussion?
It does, and I can respect that. And I went up and told Serena, I said, Serena, did you realize that Charlottesville, it's got to be the size of a quarter or bigger? And she goes, oh, I didn't know that. I went, well, but you read it, right? She goes, no, someone told me. Okay, so she didn't even read it. Like someone else told her no caps. See, so it got watered down. So had we known this, we could have avoided this fight a long time ago, right? So, yeah, so she's now on board that I can now throw away the yogurt caps and everything else. I can't believe that this is a discussion, but this is the discussion, which leads to a bigger discussion. Now, I'm always interested, and I've read things that said that, recycling is literally saving the planet. And I've read other things saying, don't even bother because it's not doing anything. It's a money-making proposition. It's not doing anything for you. Did you come up with anything and you're looking around? Which way are you? I've heard whole podcasts. I've seen documentaries. I've watched everything. Some saying, oh, we got to do this because we're going to kill, a baby harp seal and a turtle. And, other things say, don't even bother because it's all a hoax, because we don't have the capacity to turn all of this. And my thing is, okay, we have so much plastic on the planet right now. Why do we have to make any new plastic? Couldn't we just go for the next 200 years, refurbishing the plastic we have? What say you, Chris?
So based on my digging after our conversation, the answer, Vinny, is one of your favorites. The answer is yes, it's good for the environment, and no, it's not good for the environment. So right. it's a yes and no. And so there's essentially two camps
Go on.
that this falls into. Some places have a legitimate recycling program. And actually, Northern Virginia has one of the lowest incidences. What's the proper incidence
I think it's incidence
of things ending up in the wrong place. So they estimate that 15% of recycling in Northern Virginia ends up in the garbage. But a huge portion ends up in the garbage everywhere else. Or, and this one will really make you a happy panda. Local recycling will sort it, not put it in the landfill or in the incinerator. I'm in central PA right now. Harrisburg is famous for having two things: 3 Mile Island and a garbage incinerator. Right? If they don't have something local, many trash and recycle companies have a contract with someone else to do the recycling. Do you know where that recycling goes?
I saw in one of the programs I saw or read, it goes to China.
On a big slow boat to China, where they do what with it?
They burn it.
They put it in an incinerator in China. So you have now not just not recycled it, but you've somehow amplified the fossil fuel usage to put it on a diesel powered boat to send to China to be lit on fire instead of lighting it on fire locally, which I guess is better, but also not great.
Well, last time I checked, China is part of Earth. And if you do the math, they're using the same ozone layer as the rest of Earth, right? So it doesn't matter what a couple of douchebags are doing in California when you have a continent that's spewing this shit into the atmosphere, right? It's the same problem. So that's what drives me nuts about this. I knew about the China thing, and I just wanted to see if you would pull it up. Notice I knew it right away. And therein lies the problem. We don't have the infrastructure to deal with it. So it's all a feel-good project where someone's making a shit ton of money and laughing at the douchebags separating out their stuff, and it's still going up into the ozone layer. And the same douchebags who are telling you to do this are telling you not to eat meat because that's what's killing the planet.
And also at the same time not realizing that paper is a renewable resource in that trees grow back. And yes, I am a little biased because several members of my family worked for a paper company and I happen to know these things, right? Like I grew up by a paper mill. You know, my grandfather worked at a paper mill, went all over the country treating trees and growing trees and planting trees so that they would have more trees to make paper out of.
Right.
But I think the thing that's interesting, I found an article from the Smithsonian, and one of the things that you hear on the anti-recycling side is that like 70 to 80% of stuff ends up in the landfill. And that is and isn't true. So it seems like places that have a legitimate recycling program, like they appear to have in Indiana and Northern Virginia, 85% of that does get recycled, right? We just had 15% ends up in the trash or somewhere else. A lot of it ends up going to an incinerator in China. But where they're saying the breakdown is I need to see if I can find this statistic. Only 6% ends up truly being recycled. So 2 million tons out of 40 million tons ends up being recycled. But the vast majority of it is what they are calling lost at the household level. And so to me, that means Jimmy threw it away instead of putting it in the recycle bin.
Right.
So knowing that, does that change your thought process on this at all? Where there is a program that isn't sending it to China, it is recyclable and people are doing things with it. But there's a lot of programs that are just the money-making side of this. So what are your thoughts now, knowing that big scary statistic of everything is wasted really comes from people just not actually recycling it, and not the other things that are obviously huge issues?
Look, I live in a place where people are willing to do it, right? When I was in California, I was living in an area where people are willing to do it. in Northern Virginia, if people knew the kind of money, folks, Northern Virginia is DC, it's Washington, DC. And these people have a lot of money, a lot, they'll do it. You go down to Louisiana, if you mention recycling, they don't even know what you're talking about. Right? They have no idea what you're talking. It's like, if you went to any of my brother's houses and said, hey, you need to separate these two things, they're like, get the hell, what are you talking? They don't even know. No one recycles there. Not just my family. I'm not throwing my family under the bus. To the average person there, money, no money, it doesn't matter. They don't even know that it's a thing, right? They've gotten to where, my brother, is a mechanic. They know that oil, you can't just dump oil. You have to bring that to a recycle. That's about as far as Louisiana's gotten in the recycle game, is recycling oil, making sure it doesn't get into a river or lake or whatever. But the rest of it, you mentioned that down there, and you might as well be speaking Swahili. They have no idea what's coming out of your mouth, right? And it makes me wonder how many states and how many places are like that, right? I know when I was driving through Mississippi, I'm looking at those people. I'm guessing they ain't doing it. And I don't want to throw Alabama under the bus, but I was driving through there too. It doesn't look like a community that's separating their garbage. Sorry. Just ain't happening, right? So, yeah, I get that part of it, and maybe we need to get more people compliant. But at the same time, if it's going on a slow boat to China, what are we actually doing? And if we're saying, oh, well, in Northern Virginia, they've figured it out, right? But have they figured it out everywhere else? My understanding is no.
That's why that percentage is so low, right? If you're looking at a few million pounds of plastic out of the 40 or 50 million pounds of plastic and plastic adjacent things that are used every year in the US, then obviously it's not working. And I think a large portion of that comes from stupid rules, right? Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe you should get a better sorting thing that doesn't have a giant hole where quarter-sized caps can fall into and break your really expensive piece of equipment. It seems like there's an engineering solution to that problem, is my point, right? And if you can say, look, if it's plastic, put it here, people are willing to do that. And that's why I started that conversation with you this afternoon, asking you how many bins you have. Because there are places. And do you have a Wegmans near you?
Yeah. We go to Wegmans. They have really good cheese. Yeah.
Go take a look at their trash can situation outside. First of all, they don't call it trash. They call it landfill, which I find interesting. But they have like 7 different cans.
Really?
Sitting outside for all of it. Here's your bottles. Here's your whatever. At least the one up here does. I'll take a picture and I'll send it to you tomorrow. I think I'm going to run over there in the morning.
They could have that because that's so California-like. Because Californians put your bottles here, put your coffee cups here, put the lids here, blah, 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 blah. They had all the different things. So I probably see it and don't see it because I'm so used to seeing it.
But if you have to stand there for 3 minutes and say which one of these is which, your default is going to just screw it. I'm going to throw it in the trash, right? I think that I think that's a part of the issue in the US with food. And you and I have talked in the past about the olive oil choice study, right? And I know you've probably talked about this with Anna, where they put out a few different olive oils at a Whole Foods or something like that, like 3 or 4, and they measured the number of people that stopped and took samples. And then they came back a few weeks later and they put out like 35 olive oils, and they measured the number of people who stopped and took samples and the number of people who bought. A lot more people stopped to take samples when there was 20 bottles. Way fewer people purchased. Why? Because you're overwhelmed by the number of choices.
Right.
And when you do that, you do nothing or you do the default. And I think that same thing, I was having that same realization walking through, ironically, Wegmans on Sunday, going, why do we need 9,000 kinds of chips?
Right.
I don't understand. And so you get overwhelmed by the number of choices in the grocery store and go, oh, well, that's new. Let me try that. Or let me stop and take a look at this. And you get distracted and you fall into the default. Or you go look at the vegetable section and you go, what is a kohlrabi? And why is a kohlrabi? Right? And you go, I'll just get the frozen bag of peas because I know what that is. And I don't think we do enough job of education on either side of that. And so you overwhelm people by saying, hey, here's all of this minutia on the recycling side, or here's all of these options at the grocery store. And we just go, I'll just buy what I always got, or I'll just do what I always did, right? I'll just put it in the same can because I know 20 years ago it wasn't a problem. So I'm just going to keep doing that. Does that make sense?
It does. And, you know, when I go to Wegmans, because I don't shop, like you mentioned, chips, I don't even know where that aisle is. Wegmans is so big to begin with. But I know how to get to where the good cheeses are and that kind of thing. You know, I'm in there, I'm getting eggs, I'm getting yogurt, I'm getting cheese, right? I'm getting my dairy and some good butter too. Remind me butter. I'm not going to write it down. But when I go through, like if I'm trying to get olives from Wegmans, I have to do a concerted effort. I just want Kalamatas with the pit in it, right? That's the way I like my olives. I like to have a couple with cheese. Whenever I have cheese, I have a couple of olives. That's the way I roll. You got to read. These have pimento. Those have that. These have been pitted. Those are in this oil. That one is in this brine. The other one's in the other thing. And you're right. There's so many choices that I get dizzy trying to find the one product that I want. The good old fashioned Kalamatas and brine and with the pit, right? Not so easy because they give you so many choices. Folks, Kerrygold butter in the tub, the spreadable one, has seed oils in it. I just want to make that public service announcement. I didn't know this. My sister-in-law, who I made throw away the parquet on a previous show, she went out and she wanted to get a spreadable butter. She knew about the Kerrygold because I've told her about that. But she got the spreadable one in the tub, and that one had seed oils in it. So just know that. Go on, Chris.
Do you know how to make butter spreadable, Vinny?
Yeah, I tried to explain this to my sister-in-law. We pull it out in the morning when I'm making my eggs, and it just stays on the counter all day.
I grew up with a butter dish. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, right? And maybe I will die of some weird Legionnaire's disease adjacent thing.
No, you won't.
But butter is fairly shelf stable, right? Like that's kind of the point of butter. And so, yeah, we keep the backup butter in the fridge.
Yeah.
But once a stick is opened, it goes in the butter dish, and that goes either next to the sink, right? Kind of next to the cutting board, or just in the cabinet with the glasses so it's up and out of the way. And then when you need some butter, you take a little bit out, and it's already at room temperature, and it's spreadable. You don't have to put it in a plastic tub with canola oil to make it spreadable. It will naturally be slightly melty, even in Pennsylvania where it's like 40 degrees right now, right? Like it's going to warm up a little bit in the house.
Yeah, we keep it away, you know, like it doesn't stay out all day here in the summer because we leave the doors open so that the dogs can run in and out, and the house will get to 85, 90 degrees, and it'll get a little too mushy, if you will. But yeah, we leave it out pretty much. In England, it never goes in the fridge because people's kitchens in England, her mom's kitchen, Serena's mom, was always cold. The only thing that kept that part of the house even close to warm was something called an auger. I don't know if you know what an auger is.
Not a corkscrew auger. That
not an auger that you would drill with or anything else. An auger is you'll see them in England. It's an old timey thing. They run an oil. You have a big oil tank outside or something, I guess, and they heat. It's a big metal stovetop thing where it's on all the time, and the metal stays hot, and it keeps some heat going in the kitchen. You want to put something, you want to warm something up, you stick it into one of the auger, you know, like the oven part. You want to cook something, you just lift the top, and it's already hot. You know, you just lift it. The thing is on all the time. And since you're heating up this big wrought iron metal thing, the whole thing just stays hot all the time. Works like a charm. Did you look one up? It looks like you were looking one up.
I'm assuming it just looks like a regular auger, right? But it's coming out of an oven?
Yeah, it's an oven, it's a stovetop, it's everything. and it stays on all the time. As a matter of fact, whenever I'd go to her mom's house, I would hang around the kitchen because it was warm, right? They don't keep everything warm. Like in England, they don't turn the heat on. They'll just go put another layer of clothes on, right? It's always cold. Summer, winter, it doesn't matter, right? So you're just always, I'm cold. Well, I'll go throw a jumper on. They call them jumpers. We call them sweaters, right? So that's the way that works. So Chris, I'm not, look, I'm all about saving the planet. I'm all about doing what people want. But if they're making it too difficult for me, then it's too difficult. That's all I'm trying to get to here today. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think it comes down to that choice issue, right? And the common sense side of this, which is, can we make this easy for people? And can we do this in a way that is common sense? Is this what you're talking about, Vin?
Yeah, that's an auger. See, that thing is a big, heavy piece of metal. And you see those gates on the front? Each one of them are kind of a different temperature. You want to make something hotter, you put it in a certain one. You want it, some things on it's hot. But the whole thing, a fire is going in there all the time, a low-grade fire that keeps that whole metal thing hot. And you see the two things on top? Those
that would be like burners.
Yeah, if you flip up one of the things, then what's underneath is really hot. You just put your pot on that, you make your eggs, that kind of thing.
That makes sense.
It's an interesting, and it keeps the house warm in the meantime. I wanted to put one in this house, right? We looked into getting an auger for this house and just do it that way because it's a much easier thing to use, right?
Well, and if you're heating with wood or you're heating something anyway, you might as well have it be multi-use.
Yeah, we don't burn a lot. Speaking of keeping things low key, our energy bills here are very low. I buy a couple of 3 or 4 cords of wood per year. And when it starts cooling off, we start hitting fireplace. We have 3 fireplaces here. And the one down in my office, if I'm done using the heat down here, I'll open the door to the upstairs going into the rest of the house, and that heat will just funnel through, right? And if Serena has one in the area where she's working, and if it gets really cold, like those days when it's like 22 degrees here, we'll just wake up in the morning and just build fires in all 3. And then on top of that, we might have to turn on the heat a little bit, right? So it's not like we're not Amish around here. I mean, we do use the heater, but we don't have.
We're not Amish, he says, while podcasting on electronics.
Yeah. But you understand what I'm saying? It's like we're not trying to be, Little House on the Prairie or the Waltons, which I think was supposed to be in Virginia. We're not pulling off the Waltons here, but when you got 3 fireplaces and they're perfectly functional, that will keep your house warm, right? And we don't have to worry about the upstairs until we go to bed. And we like to sleep really cold anyway. It's that much more comfortable. So did we cover it? It's confusing. You don't want plastic bags. I never know if I'm supposed to use plastic bags and put them in the thing. I don't know. Caps, we have that figured out. But at the end of the day, we don't have this down pat yet. Right. And, I remember I've never seen Yellowstone. I've never watched Yellowstone, but people always show me that clip from Yellowstone where he's talking, Kevin Costner is talking to the vegan girl, basically going, which animals do you want to see live? Because anytime you cut wheat or corn or whatever, you're killing snakes and frogs and this and that and the whole thing, right? And people say, oh my God, he's saying what you're saying, right? Taylor Sheridan is using your quotes. And then just the other day, I was watching Landman because I am watching Landman. And he does the same thing with the windmills and the electric cars and the whole thing. He's explaining to this girl, this isn't fossil fuels. That's not the best solution, but it's what we have right now. And what you're proposing doesn't fix the problem. And he explains why. So it's funny how programs are now coming out that's talking at least in a different direction, right? So there you have it. Folks, Chris, we're going to open up. Are we going to open up VIP around New Year's or something?
Yeah, I think we said the the week between Christmas and New Year.
Yeah, we should open up. So, folks, if you want to be on a VIP group, go to VinnieTortorich.com/VIP and put your name in, because when we open the group, you want to get in there. Did you see the text I just sent you? There's a friend of mine I want you to send.
Like an hour or so ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Take care of that, please. So, folks, go do that. We also have the Superfan page and all of that over at VinnieTortorich.com. Before you go to Amazon, please go to VinnieTortorich.com. Click through the banner. It puts coal on the fire, gets my train down the track. Chris, this is coming out on the 11th. Our magnesium should be hitting our warehouse on the 13th, in 2 days.
Yes, sir.
And we should be shipping that out next week, early next week.
Yeah. Somewhere between Monday and Tuesday. Barring trucks driving off the road or something crazy going on.
Right.
Had a conversation with them today. Today being when we recorded this, not when this is airing. And they said it should be good to be picked up in the next day or so, which means it'll start hitting our warehouses on Friday or Saturday and shipping out early next week. So it should be, along with the vitamin D, Vinny, in people's hands by Christmas.
Yeah. And again, we apologize for all of the holdup. We'll be shipping out all next week. And glad that we were able to pull this off. And I do, look, I would be pissed off too. I was pissed off because of what happened. But you guys have more of a right to be pissed off than me. It's my fault. I'm trying to fix it. We're fixing it as fast as we can. We'll play a little Blondie on the way out. So on behalf of Chris Shaffer, my name is Vinnie Tortorich. Put life into living and do it with a little more Blondie.